Hey guys, it's Zach. How are you all doing? I hope you're all doing really well. My talk is about Palm Sunday, and what better day, I guess, to have this talk than on Palm Sunday. So, let's talk a little bit about the story and read from the Bible because that's a great place to read from. This is a reading from Matthew 21. When Jesus and the disciples drew near Jerusalem and came to Bethphage on the Mount of Olives, Jesus sent two disciples, saying to them, "Go into the village opposite you, and immediately you will find an ass tethered, and a colt with her. Untie them and bring them here to me. And if anyone should say anything to you, reply, 'The Master has need of them.' Then he will send them at once." This happened so that what had been spoken through the prophet might be fulfilled. "Say to daughter Zion, Behold, your king comes to you, meek and riding on an ass, and on a colt, the foal of a beast of burden." The disciples went and did as Jesus had ordered them. They brought the ass and the colt and laid their cloaks over them, and he sat upon them. The very large crowd spread their cloaks on the road, while others cut branches from the trees and strewed them on the road. The crowds preceding him and those following kept crying out and saying, "Hosanna to the Son of David! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord! Hosanna in the highest!" And when he entered Jerusalem, and the whole city was shaken and asked, "Who is this?" And the crowds replied, "This is the prophet Jesus from Nazareth in Galilee." So the people of Jerusalem are celebrating this triumphant arrival of Jesus. They're putting their clothes on the road so this prophet riding a donkey can ride into the city on a red carpet of sorts. And a fun fact about this donkey that I wanted to wedge into this talk because it's about Palm Sunday as well is before the Protestant Reformation, there were towns in Germany that had these life-size wooden donkeys on wheels that they would process through the town in celebration of Palm Sunday. I just thought that was a fun thing to mention. But anyways, about this celebration, these people, these crowds in Jerusalem that are welcoming Jesus, they're coming to Jesus and surrounding him and basically following him. They're acknowledging him. They're calling him the Son of David. They're acknowledging his triumphant entrance into the city as a king, really treating him sort of like a Hollywood celebrity coming in and putting their cloaks on the road, celebrating his entrance on this red carpet of sorts. But there's something weird about this. There's something weird that I noticed while writing this talk that I hadn't really thought about before. These crowds are all people from Jerusalem, and we're, I believe, meant to believe that these are the same crowds that are in the story yelling about his crucifixion to Pontius Pilate. They're yelling, it's kind of a betrayal, and it's these people that have celebrated him, that have welcomed him into the city, are days later, same week, yelling to Pontius Pilate about this crucifixion. I think this is a really good example of the imperfection of humanity, our imperfections as humans. What I mean by this is that as humans, we're on one hand loving Jesus and wanting to be with him, but on the other hand, we're failing him by turning away with sin constantly. We see the crowds of Jerusalem welcome Jesus with celebration. Then he's betrayed by them. We see them welcoming him as a celebrity, like I said earlier, and they're betraying him days later, yelling about his crucifixion. It's like a switch of moods, but we see a similar thing happen with St. Peter. After he met Jesus, Peter became an apostle and followed Jesus very closely. He was very good friends with Jesus. He follows him. He's an apostle, and Jesus, and yet Jesus tells him that he's going to betray them, and Peter tells him that he would never do that. He's one of Jesus' best friends, but later he still finds himself denying Jesus 3 times. We do this too. We have these moments that are like the crowd celebrating the coming of Jesus. They're these moments where we're one with God. Maybe in class, maybe in adoration, maybe in a different form of prayer where we feel at one with Him, at one with Jesus, where nothing really matters. Everything is perfect in that moment. But the fact is that these are moments, while powerful and important, they're not permanent. We are still going to have our weak moments like Peter did. We have to be aware of these weak moments. We have to be wary of them and prepare ourselves for them. We shouldn't let these weak moments deter us, though. We should turn to God once we notice our weaknesses. I know for me, this reminds me of my struggle with the faith later in high school, and turning to God when I came to college really allowed me to strengthen my faith once again after noticing where I was at the end of high school, after noticing that I really was having a problem. I turned back to God and chose to come to CCM and join peer ministry, and that really strengthened my faith. After denying Jesus, Peter did not just give up and say, well, I guess it didn't work out. He persisted with his faith despite his imperfection and remained the rock of the church and an amazing disciple of God. We should do the same. After we sin once or a few times, we can't just stop trying to better ourselves. We can't just give up and say, well, this is who I am now. We have to pick ourselves back up, and we have to say, well, I admit that I messed up, and we have to get right back to bettering ourselves and getting right back to trying to become closer with God. Now, I know this is way easier said than done. Trust me, I know, especially now in our very particular circumstances when we're in our social distancing lifestyle and we're basically quarantining ourselves. It's hard to maintain that faith while we're doing that as well. It's hard to strengthen our faith when a lot of our friends are what we use to strengthen it. But these circumstances don't change what we're called by God to do with our faith, regardless of what struggle we have. With Christ, we can manage whatever difficulty we may face. Looking to God for help is not where our weakness comes from. In fact, we can prepare ourselves for these weak moments by looking to God and developing a strong prayer life and going to confession regularly. I know developing a strong prayer life might be difficult right now, but I think making that schedule can, and especially, make us stronger in our faith. Doing things like this is what's going to help us in our journey to being one with God, even when our prayer is dry and hard to maintain, like right now, like when we're quarantined and separated from what we used to find Jesus in. This is when it's important to continue with prayer. Continuing that prayer is what's going to keep us strong in the faith. This is when we need our prayer the most. We have to strive for perfection even when we're constantly imperfect, even if we're failing with our prayer lives right now, even when this new situation is what's leading us to struggle with it. This is when we have to constantly pick up, start again the next day, and just rededicate ourselves every day when we get up. Striving to be with God is what strengthens us. We can't forget about those really strong God moments that we have in our life, even when we're not really having them that often right now. If we aren't, we have to strive to be with God. So basically what I'm saying is, be wary of the weak moments that we might be having. Prepare ourselves for them by developing a strong prayer life. And developing that strong prayer life is what's going to keep us strong in the faith. It's what's going to keep us closer to God. And with that, I want to say that I love you guys and I hope you're all doing very well.